I'd like to welcome you to Paleo Man 52's Man Cave. Now today I've got something special. I'm going to start a new series, but look at today's weather. This is February 13th here in western New York State, and I don't remember too many February 13ths that were this nice. Look at this temperature. Yeah, you're right, you see it, it's almost 50 degrees, and that's in the shade. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in the man cave here, and I've got a frame of what I call keeper case points. So as we journey in here, I got a little heat going there, it's just a little chill in the air. We're going to examine this case here. This is one of my favorite keeper cases, and all these points are ones that I just couldn't seem to part with, no matter what the price. I just really liked them. They have a memory, some of them do, and we'll start going through them. So, this one right here is really special. This one here is made out of Flint Ridge chalcedony from Ohio. Now the little story on this was I was at our Knapped several years ago, and Roy Miller, who's world known as the greatest supplier of the most beautiful Flint Ridge that's ever been seen, saw me looking through his pile, and this piece had like $80 on it. And of course, you know, when you go car shopping, you look at the most expensive one, and then you look at the one you can afford. And I was starting to put it down, and Roy says, "Let me see that stone." So I handed it to him. He says, "You can have this one. There's 2 or 3 cracks in it. I don't think you'll get much out of it." Well, when he said that, I was determined to make something out of this material. Absolutely the biggest piece I've ever made using Flint Ridge chalcedony. It's just a nice blade, but it's so thin and it's so nicely worked. I mean, I don't take full credit for that. You know, if the stone's working well, then you should be able to work with it. So the next year went by, and I brought it back to the Knapped, and I wanted to show Roy what I had done with his stone. And he took one look and he says, "Yep, you wrecked another one of my rocks." And then he chuckled. And that's Roy's humor. If anybody out there knows Roy Miller, they'll know what I'm talking about. So I do like making blades. This is just a really super nice, and again, thin, bi-pointed blade. Nothing all that special. It's just the flakes look good on it to me. Material is pretty, and I didn't want to part with it, and so I put it in my keeper case. Now, I've watched a lot of you guys from Missouri finding these fantastic Etleys, and boy, I'll tell you what, I don't see a lot of guys out there chipping Etleys out. So I made it a mission to learn how to chip one. So I studied, and a few generous folks from Missouri have given me some Etley points, and I studied those religiously. And this is my Etley point that I made. It's the biggest one I ever made. I don't make a lot of them, but it's hard for me to beat this one here. And again, it's probably a little thinner than what they normally were from what I've studied, but that's a pretty neat point right there. And that's my Etley point. Made out of a Burlington Keokuk type material, and I just probably keep that one forever. Here's a turkey tail that I just couldn't seem to part with. Now this is probably one of the best ones I've ever made. This is a Harrison County style turkey tail, and you know, the Fulton turkey tail is much wider, but the Harrison were more like a feather, and somewhat shaped that way. And this is one I've made a lot of turkey tails in the past. Again, very thin, very nice. And here is kind of a Graham Cave, Otter Creek style point. More Graham Cave probably than anything. I really like this design. And this one's been in there since 2013. I just see the date on this one. I should have signed them all, but I just threw them right in the case, and that was the end of that. And I like this style so much, I made a few more in this style. And this is one of them right here. Now, you wouldn't think that New York State has pretty material. Pretty much, you'll see it in here. We have the gray mottled Onondaga chert. But this is Norman Skill or Deep Kill chert from the Hudson Valley, which is on the east side of our state. Look at this beautiful point. Now this came from a slab. A good friend of mine, Mark Green, gave me a slab of this. He'd quarried and cut it, and boy, you know, when you got a slab, something like this, you really slow down, you try to do your best work, and this one came out really super good. And this one, I'll never part with. Moving along with the same theme of these Otter Creek style points, this is another one, and this is made out of material that I'm sure they weren't made out of. This is basalt, and this comes from out in, I think, Arizona, not sure, but boy, you know, this one came out pretty good. And for basalt, there's a lot of these little crystal pockets, as you can see right there, and sometimes they just don't hold up to the abuse of antler billet thinning, but this one did, and so in the keeper case it went. Now this is also more of the typical Norman's Kill, and this is a Susquehanna point right here, Susquehanna broad point, and this is Norman's Kill chert. Now to get a piece like this that doesn't have seams and fractures and cracks in it is nearly impossible, but you know, you go through enough of it and you will eventually get a piece that works like this. And I love the modeling in this. Pretty neat stuff. Okay, now we're on to my favorite. This is Onondaga chert. This is our classic Genesee point. Now, this is the biggest Genesee point I've ever made. I think it's 6 1/4 inches. And to get a piece of Onondaga that, you know, isn't got seams in it and falls apart when you get it thin, that again is nearly impossible. So as you see, a lot of these pieces are ones that were just out of the ordinary. Normally I'd have 2 points with a piece this big. It'd break at some point. But this is Onondaga chert. And you can see it's really a gray material. One thing I can say about it is it's very durable. If you ever make atlatl tips and you use Onondaga chert, they hold up really super well. You know, they can take a lot of punishment. It's a tough material. Now here's a harden I made using some heat-treated Burlington. Always loved the hardened style point. And I make a lot of these, all different sizes. And it's one that's really takes a lot to master, to get them to look just right. This one's pretty close, but I've got other ones that I've made in the last year or so that I consider right on. So that's my shot in here at a nice hardened point. Now here's an oddball. Here, look at this guy. This is a Perkiomen point, which are found in the Genesee Valley and around western central New York. These are typically paper thin. They have a base that doesn't usually follow the tip, and they almost always have a rounded off shoulder and a pointed one. That's a classic look for this type of point. There was a cache of these found in the Genesee Valley about 18 miles from where I live, where all of them were broken and buried, and I think they had ochre on them, and it was believed that they were ceremonially killed. And when they found this cache, the people that found it, they put a lot of them back together because all the pieces were there. Now this is the right material for the point type. This is a Pedernales point, and this is good Texas flint. Again, I haven't made a lot of these, but this one came out pretty good. So I've been tempted at times. I've had a couple guys really want this point, but it's going to stay in here for a while. Okay, now here's what I'm known for as a napper, the Snyder style point. And I'm not sure what the date is on that, if it's 2004. It's been a while since I made this point, but look at how thin this big Snyder's point is. This one I did sign. Now that's not typical to get a piece like this that thin and that broad. So that one's probably my favorite Snyder's I've ever made out of Onondaga. I know this video is probably running a little long, but there's so much to talk about here. Now, let's see if we can get some light here. Oh yeah, this is cool. This is Knife River Chalcedony. This was a piece of material that Woody Blackwell gave to me on a trade, and I wanted to do something really special with it, and I really took a risk and I fluted it. It's got a flute on both sides. This one is not quite as nice as this one, of course, but it survived, and it's been in my keeper case for quite a few years now. So let's see what we got next. Oh yeah, here's a dandy right here. Every now and then, of course, I'm Irish, and as stubborn as I am, I could not stop knapping this piece of basalt, and I knapped it into a drill. Now that's a pretty long drill right there, and I can't believe that this thing held up like it did. But there it is, and I did not break it in the process. This little guy here, that's a quartz arrowhead I made. Little triangle. I've only made 2 or 3 points using quartz, and that one there is one I kept. Now the crazy looking thing here is an eccentric. I believe I used, it might be Cook, it might be Peoria, it might be Burlington, I can't remember. But I saw a picture of one that a guy had made. I think it was on the cover of Chips magazine, maybe not. But I kind of wanted to replicate that, and I've made a couple of these, and one of them I did part with, and this one stays with me. It's kind of classic of what a Mayan napper could do, making all these little faces and cuts in the stone, and that's my attempt at it. And the last one here in the case is one of my favorite little things to do, is to make a turtle. And this little turtle has been in there right from the beginning, and it's Flint Ridge, and as you can see, it's a skinny little turtle. Got a long neck, and this is one of the things that I love to do when I'm not making a knife or something like that. But there's a look at what I've done with this case, and I do have several more cases, and now and then I'm going to release a video on one of my keeper cases. So this is number 1 in my series of my keeper case points. I hope you enjoyed this little look at some points that are special to me, all these points I've made in my practice learning to be a flint napper. You know, you never stop learning as a flint napper. You just keep trying to figure out more and more how to do things, and as I do make things and things get even better, I might start replacing a few of these pieces in here. But I like the way this case looks. I'm going to probably keep it that way. So I want to thank you for hanging with me. I hope you made it to the end. Thanks for watching. I'd appreciate a sub if you're not already subbed, and if you want to, you can give me a like and a comment. Be much appreciated. And well, catch you on the next one. Everybody be well and safe.